Hello, my friends, and welcome to another video. I mentioned in, I think, the last few videos that I really needed to kind of hone in and figure out what my market plan was going to be for 2026. One of my goals, if you watch that video, if not, I'll link it up here, is to do at least 3 markets. And I gotta tell you, part of me was really hoping to like shoot for 5 or more, just because I really enjoy it so much. But I also have those couple of other goals that are kind of big and time consuming. So I decided to just plan for a solid 3, and then if it happens, it happens. I was hoping to kind of narrow down what markets I would do based off of some data. So I created a spreadsheet, you know me, and I put in there all of the information about the market, the location, the booth fees, how often they occur, if it's something that's recurring, as well as the dates, both for, when you need to apply by and when the market was. There were 2 markets that I wanted to visit before finalizing kind of what I was going to do. The first one is a local market that's literally like 10 minutes from my house. And it's something that the city has been advertising since I want to say last year. But I didn't get a chance to check it out before. So it's one that I was really hopeful for, because if I could get one that I could almost kind of regularly attend, I figured that would probably be a good thing. So Mr. Skane and I passed by that market the other day. The advertisement for it is fantastic. They talked about having food trucks and some farmer market style booths along with handmade crafts and things like that. So I was really looking forward to it. Unfortunately, it was dead. We actually got there at a time where I figured it would be hopping, and I think we were probably the only people walking around. At one point, we did see a couple other folks trickle in and out, but they were supposed to have like live yoga, and there was a poor lady on this like stage area, and she's doing yoga, and there's literally no one watching. There were maybe 8 vendor booths there, no food trucks, no like produce or anything. One of the vendors was selling some soap products. So I went up to her and just started to chat a little bit about the market. I let her know what I did and that I was considering the market and asked if it was always like this. And she mentioned that she did the market a lot last year and it was really, really good. But when the summer came around, which in South Florida it is scorching, a lot of vendors just started bagging out because there were no people coming to the market because it's so hot outside. So she was hopeful that it was going to pick back up again, but apparently it kind of didn't towards the end of the year. And she came into this one hoping that, it was going to kind of reignite things and she was going to want to continue, but she was really disappointed at how dead it was. She didn't exactly say it, but it sounded like she would do well enough to make her booth fee back, which is like $55, but it wasn't necessarily like a banger of a day. I may go back here or there throughout the year just to check it out and see if things are picking up, but as of right now, I kind of crossed that one off the list. The other one is a really big market that's held in front of Zoo Miami, which is like the largest zoo that we have down here. That is over, I want to say like an hour and change away from the house. And Mr. Skane and I were going to drive down there to check it out. But deep down, I kind of knew that even if we went there and we saw it and it was lucrative, I was probably not going to want to do it because I am not a big fan of zoos. And even though I wouldn't have to go inside, it's kind of out front of the gate where they sell tickets and stuff like that. I knew that I would not be on with the vibe there. So I decided to kind of cross that one off the list as well. So once I knew those 2 were off the list, I kind of went back to the spreadsheet and just started looking through some things. I knew I wasn't going to be ready for a market in February because I just don't feel like I'm there with my inventory, and just mentally, I'm just not ready to get started. So I eliminated everything that was January, February, and just started looking at dates from March on. A small part of me was considering just doing fall markets. So I was thinking, I could use the first half of the year to kind of really focus on some of those other goals. I would obviously still make things for my inventory, and kind of have a strategy of just setting those up for the fall. But I had a little bit of fear that that was going to impede my goal in ways that I couldn't control. So I want to do 3 for sure. But last year I wanted to do 3 at the fall time and I couldn't get into one of them. I was kind of grateful at that point because I wouldn't have had enough inventory, but I also know that it's a little bit harder to get into the fall markets and there aren't a ton of them around. So it's not like I can just pick and choose. So I decided going just fall markets was probably not the best thing to do. So in looking at my calendar, there's not a lot during the summer. And if it was going to be a summer market, it was going to have to be indoors. There's a few markets that were like Mother's Day time, but I haven't seen them advertised yet. They were ones that I knew of from last year. So I don't know if those are going to actually occur. What I ended up settling on is the Spring Craft Fair, and it's hosted by the same people who hosted the first market that I had ever done. If you haven't seen that video, I'll link it up here so you can check it out. But it was inside of a really big convention center and had a lot of good traffic, and it was a very lucrative market for me. So I figured this will do two things for me. It'll help me see kind of what the difference is as far as the crowds and the shopping vibe, in March versus how I know it'll hopefully be if it's the same as it was last year in September. So I went ahead and pulled the trigger and applied for that market. Having been a vendor for them in the last 6 months, I didn't have to fill out everything, which was kind of nice. I just put my information in, that I had done that market, indicated which one it was, and I'm hoping to hear back soon as to whether or not I get in. It's cutting it a little bit close, but I did get an email saying that they still had some vendor spots available. So I'm hopeful that that gets me in, but I'm also kind of like, ooh, if they have spots available, is that a good thing? I don't know, but we'll see. I'm applied. I'm going to go for it, and we'll see how well it does. I definitely know I'm going to do the Halloween market that I did with them last year. That was a ton of fun. I loved the vibe of it. It was really my jam. So I'm definitely going to be doing that one again. That one doesn't open for signups until June. So I'll be doing that at that time. And then that leaves me figuring out what market I want to do last for the year. I'm a little bit torn between two markets. I halfway considered doing both, but they're only a week apart. So I don't think I could handle that, at least not yet. But I'm considering doing the outdoor market that I did last year, the Not Your Mama's Craft Fair. And then I'm also considering doing the convention center market for their holiday craft fair, which is in mid-November. What I'm struggling with is I'm trying to not be a pampered baby and go all indoors because it's so nice. But I also, like, the other craft market has a little special place in my heart because Mr. Skane goes there with his high school kids and he'll be there with their booth, and they were so cute last year. And I'm thinking, like, if I do it this year, I'm going to make little things for all of the volunteers because they were scrapping their money together and sharing custody of buying a plushie and stuff like that. And I just want to give them a little something. I don't know. I'm really kind of, that one pulls at my heartstrings and the other one pulls at my, like, bougie comfort zone. So I haven't 100% committed yet. The other really nice thing about the craft fair is that it's so close to my house. It's only a few minutes away. So it's like you're tired for the day from having been outside and everything. And I didn't feel well last year, and hopefully that won't be the case this year, but you're like exhausted from being out in the heat and you can just drive home and it's like 10 minutes away and you're good. You can get in the shower. Whereas the other one's like an hour and change and you're still exhausted even though you're inside. So I don't know, am I convincing myself while I'm talking? But yeah, I haven't made that decision yet. I have until June to decide that because neither of those open up for applications until then. So I will update you once I make the final decision. But yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm really split down the middle because the heartstrings on the one side, but the bougie on the other. But for now, we have 2 out of 3 planned. So the market plan is in motion. I'm feeling pretty good about it. However, that does give me only about 8 weeks to get ready for the first market in the spring. So I got to start cracking on the inventory. I did really good on the rat week, but I've only been making like 3 or 4 things here and there, and I really need to get the hustle on. I did not do that this week. One of my makes took a while, but we'll get to that in a minute. First, I want to show you something I mentioned I was going to crochet in the last video, and that was using the Eclectic Scribbles Monster Friend pattern again. I told you last week that I really wanted to make a 4th one, and I was really thinking about making a one-eyed, one-horned flying purple people eater. So that is what I did. So here's my little one-eyed, one-horned flying purple people eater. I gave him some stars in his eyes. I don't know if they'll show up, some iridescent ones and some purple ones. Gave him a little toothless action. He's got his one eye. I just did a chain and put it on for the eyebrow and only did one horn, obviously. This is made out of Parfait Plush. And this is, I think, like the second time I've used this yarn. I like working with it, but I need to size down in my hook. I don't like the way I also yarned under, and I almost feel like I like it better with yarn over stitches for some reason. I don't know. The stitches feel very defined for me, which is okay, but it almost feels like it's holes, but it's not holes. I just don't like that look. So yeah, I'm not sure what's happening there, but he's adorable. I'm going to sell him. It's fine. But it's just one of those things that for me, I feel like I see the decreases. I feel like, yeah, so I don't know. But yeah, he's made with Parfait Plush, and this is actually Sweet Snuggles Light that I've had sitting around forever. So the dark purple is that, and then this is also Parfait Plush that I just embroidered his little tooth with. But yeah, he came out super cute. He's got his little wings. I just chained out like 12 and then, went back in. But yeah, I think he came out pretty cute. The next make is the one that took a while. So I keep kind of crossing things off of my goal list that weren't my goals, which is cool. I like that because it's nice to feel the little dopamine hit when you cross it off. But part of me is like, you should spend time on some of the things that are your goals. But let me show you what I'm talking about. So I mentioned in my goal video, one of the things I was considering making a goal was working with resin again or working with lights again. So I decided to go ahead and make something a little bit themed, which is very unlike me when it comes to a Valentine's Day because I am not a Valentine's Day person. But I made what I am calling Freya, the Forest Guardian. So this is the pattern by Squishy Stitch. You've seen me make it probably a bajillion times at this point. It's a pattern that I will probably continue to make for the rest of my life. But I ended up doing a little heart on the end of the tail instead of like the fluff. But I did some resin horns here at the top. Let's see if I can show you. I did some hand-painted eyes that have different pink and red hearts in them and a white iridescent background. And then I made this little pendant out of resin as well. This is double-stranded around, so if someone wanted to actually take it off and wear it, they could. But wait, there's more. I'm going to turn the light off for a second because you know that she lights up. So in her heart resin horn tips, there are LEDs as well as in her chest. And these LEDs are not on the surface, so you cannot feel them. They're behind the crochet. And then you have the little resin pendant here. So if this is not here, the lights are still there in the heart shape. And I just love her. I love her so much. So yeah, I ended up doing resin and lights again. Let me turn on my light again. All right, we're back. I had so much fun making her. Let me turn these lights off so I can show you also. So basically on her back, I made her some wings. So she's almost like a little Cupid style girly. And then under here is where the pouch is, where her battery packs are so that you can turn on the lights and so that you can replace the batteries and everything like that. So a little bit about how I made Freya. I'll pop some pictures on the screen right now, but basically I cut some black felt using my new Caesar Juliet in the shape of a heart. And on one of those hearts, I made little holes. The LEDs that I use, I'll show you those in just a second. Those come with 10 on a string. So I made 10 little holes around the hearts. And then from the back side of the heart, glued it so that the lights would poke through those holes. And then I secured it with some hot glue. And then I put a solid heart on the back of that just to kind of seal everything together so there weren't wires rubbing around in there or anything. The wires are insulated, they're safe, they're not going to hurt anyone or anything, so we should be fine there. Before I sewed the head on, I put that heart into the chest area where I knew I was going to want it. And I put a little small dab of hot glue on the back, on the inside of the Forest Guardian, so that it would glue that black heart to the surface so they're not going to move around inside there when I was stuffing or sewing or, with some love and that kind of stuff. And then I basically just pulled the battery pack out the back. So the battery pack wire comes between, where I sewed the head on. This is what the lights look like when they come from Amazon. And then you kind of just pull the tab so that you can turn them on. And I just got white lights this time. The one that I used on my Cindermint Dragon was multi-lights because it was Christmas. But they come in a pack like this, a pack of 10. I'll link them below in case you're interested in them. But and then when it comes to the resin, I can link those supplies below as well. But basically, I got this silicone mold and it's got different size hearts in it. This is the size heart that I used for the pendant on the neck. And then I did 2 hearts for each horn. And I say that, but in all actuality and reality, I probably did 12 hearts because it took a lot of learning to figure out how I wanted to do it, and I ruined a bunch of them. But basically, I did some glitter mixed with resin into this mold, and the final set was 2 of these, and then I used my old nail art drill to hollow out the inside of each half so that a light would fit inside. And then I resined them together over the light. Funny story that's not so funny. I did all of that and then realized I hadn't fed it through the horn. So it was garbage because you cannot get that thing apart, which is a good thing once it's done, but I could not get that thing apart to be able to then feed it through the horn. I don't know what I was thinking. I was really excited that I got them to fit well, and yeah. But, you know, when you screw something up, you do it much better the second time around. So it worked out fine. I just had to do it again. And I did sacrifice 1 set of lights because there was no going back at that point, and I just used it to experiment and try other things out. But yeah, so I ended up having to do that a few times, but she's all set now, and I'm really happy with how she turned out. But yeah, she is actually going to go up on my Etsy store. She should already be up by the time you see this video if you wanted to check her out. I am thinking I'm going to charge 75 or 80 plus shipping. I haven't quite made up my mind yet. So I have to finish doing my calculations. I hadn't put in like what the lights cost yet. So I'm going to put that in and then come up with the pricing for her, and she will be listed on Etsy. Since my market's not until March, she's probably not something that's going to come with me there. If she doesn't sell on Etsy by the time the listing runs out, then I'll just hold off for next year. Those are my makes for the week. Now that I know I have applied for that March market, I really got to get myself in gear, like I said, to start doing some makes. But the first thing I want to do is sit down and take a look at the prior sales and my prior inventory, because I want to come up with what my minimum inventory to go to a market is. Not themed stuff based on holidays or anything like that, but like, what is my true staple inventory and what does that mean for me? Because what I started with last year thinking I wanted to crochet and carry is not what I ended up either enjoying making or liking once it was done. So I really need to kind of take a few minutes and sit down and figure out what I want that to be so that I can then hone in and start making it. So I hope you found this video enjoyable. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.